Getting awfully tough to keep up with the latest finance jargon. Talk has shifted dramatically in recent months, from imminent predictions of a hard landing, then shifting to the likelihood of a soft landing. And now financial analysts are telling us this baby might never land. What does this newly coined no landing scenario entail? Let's break it down for you. Starting with the term hard landing. This is where the Fed tightens so much that it creates a recession. So unemployment goes up, people lose their jobs, and ultimately cannot afford the things they want to buy, Seana.
So then there's this other scenario, a soft landing. We were talking about this for quite some time. Fed Chair Jay Powell also weighed in on this, but this is where inflation is tamed. It is coming down, but not as many people need to lose their jobs as expected. So the slowdown is a bit shallower. It's a softer landing, and in theory, a recession would then be avoided.
Okay, and finally, this new one, the no landing scenario. The economy just continues to grow. Inflation is not necessarily tamed. Economists are saying the no landing scenario is not something you particularly want, because that would mean the Fed would have to keep rates higher for longer. And at some point, every plane must land. How is this one going to land? I think ought to be the question.
Yeah, and I would make the argument that if you did have a no landing type of scenario, it would eventually turn into a hard landing scenario because the Fed would likely have to keep rates higher, like you were saying. There's also the argument that they would then continue to raise rates, which would potentially cause the economy to pull back, which obviously would be bad news for your portfolio, bad news for equity, which would then bring us all the way back to that hard landing scenario.
Well, we do have to ask the question if the Fed will at some point accept some other form of, they say their price target is 2%, and we know that, and Jerome Powell said it 1,000 times. Will they eventually concede 3.5? I don't think so. Yeah. But the other thing we have to acknowledge is we've never seen an economy like this because of the war in Ukraine, because of the COVID stimulus, because of the COVID shutdowns in China. We've never seen the factors that led us to this moment in time. So all these predictions based on the past aren't entirely relevant.
Yeah, and so many changes that have gone on in the workforce alone. Think about how many Americans retired early because of the pandemic. Simply, we haven't seen a large chunk of those workers return to the workforce. We might never see that going forward. The jobs market has remained so resilient. Over 500,000 jobs created in this latest data that we've gotten. It's hard to really wrap your head around what exactly this is all going to look like in the coming quarters. And that's why I think there's so many different opinions out there about what we are exactly seeing right now.